To grind or not to grind? Well, I guess that's the question. Welcome back everybody to another episode here at the stable, where today we're faced with the hardest decision we've had to make for the Scrapstang. When making a permanent modification to any build, it comes with quite a bit of things to think about, like how will it look cosmetically, how will it work functionally, and a big one, is it even worth doing? In most cases for this build, it's been a pretty easy decision. For example, the shock towers. Sliced them off with no hesitation. And the biggest modification we've made, which I like to call the highlight of this build, which is the engine relocation. That means redesigning engine mounts, transmission mounts, all the way back to our pinion angle on our rear axle. All those things we did with absolutely zero hesitation or second thoughts. But the one thing that does keep me up at night is this firewall. I mean, we didn't have any hesitation actually cutting the firewall and patching it, but it was what we were left with that I'm hesitant of. And I'm specifically talking about the series of stitch welds that were left behind. They don't really bother me. They're not too terrible to look at. If anything, it actually complements the scraptastic look of this car. But this entire time that I've been building this car, I've been saying that the engine bay has to be a sanctuary, a showcase for the months and months we spent relocating that engine. So if we've already spent some time deleting holes in the engine bay, like right here and over here, what's a little bit more grinding? And for those of you that said I hadn't done it just because I was being lazy, you're absolutely freaking correct. You see, when we plugged and deleted some of these factory holes, it's pretty easy. You just plug it, weld it, grind it, we're good. But when it comes to something like this, it's not as simple, simply due to the size of this thing. Not to worry though, because I've contacted an expert in sheet metal. Su pinche madre. Alrighty, so, what are you thinking? Pues, yo digo que lo soldemos por atrás primero, para que haya bastante material, para que cuando usemos el grinder enfrente o la soldadora, no nos sobrepasemos para este lado. Yeah, that makes sense. Y'all heard the man. It looks like we're gonna start welding from the backside first. That way, with the extra material on the backside, we can further prevent some blow-throughs and pinholes. I had the fuel lines diverted inside of the car when we were sandblasting, but I'm gonna take them back out so when we're welding in here we don't go boom. Before I weld in here though, I'm just gonna clean up some of the welding surfaces on the inside. Alright, so we have all of the surfaces that we will be welding on cleaned. Ain't nothing to it but to do it at this point. Alright, so these first couple welds are pretty much just going to be practice so we can get the welder settings right. Oh, this is gonna be really uncomfortable. Ow! My helmet doesn't even fit in here. Okay, so welder settings are way off. I'm going to decrease heat a little bit and increase wire. I like that. Okay, that seems pretty good. Not bad. Alrighty, right here you can see our first stitch from the backside. It's not bad, but I'm not exactly in love with it yet. From the engine bay side, you can see we got plenty of penetration here. I think I'm gonna turn down the heat just a bit so we're not creating too much bubbles on this side. I pretty much want to replicate on the inside what we did on the outside, so we're gonna adjust the welder until we get closer to that. It's a bit more like it. So here's our two stitches so far. The one on the right is the one we just did, and as you can see, it has much less bubbling or protrusion to this engine bay side, so we're dialing it in. With the welds protruding that much into the engine bay, I'm concerned I'm making more work for myself, but we're gonna keep going with a couple more stitch welds, see if we could get the welder a little bit more fine-tuned and go from there. Alrighty, so we got a couple more stitches on the panel, and we're getting less protrusion on this side. And I don't mean penetration, because we want the heat to penetrate to melt everything together, right? But we don't want the welds to be popping out on this side. Like right here is probably the worst protrusion. You can see the welds from the backside are stacked on top of the welds on the front side, whereas these newer ones, you could kind of see where the weld is on the backside, but it's not protruding at all into the engine bay side. But it looks like we are out of gas, so huge thanks to Robert Lugo for this extra tank of welding gas. Literally, this channel runs on you guys, the Patreons. Joke's on me, guys, because this one's empty also. Still though, huge thanks to Robert for the tank, because now we can fill up 2 tanks, but I'm stupid and I just happened to assume that that one was already full. We're back with a new bottle, actually full one. I thought my gauge was just off, but turns out my brain was just off. We're back in business. So we got this thing fully reburned all around, but man, did that suck. I've spent a whole lot of time under the dashboard of these cars, but man, today was the worst. You can't freaking fit in here with the helmet and the gloves and the torch, and oh my goodness, my back aches. Anyway, we got a full bead all the way around. They look like absolute crap, but there's material there. I literally had to weld most of it while looking through the radio hole port. So I'm literally welding like this at full arm's length, barely able to see. Oh my goodness, I'm glad it's done. But now with all that extra material on the backside of these welds, we will hopefully have less of a chance of blowing through. Don't you love it when your daily takes up more time and money than your project car does? Yeah, me too. Damn near went bankrupt buying a battery. Holy crap, the Crown Vic makes the Mustang look reliable. And the Mustang doesn't even have an engine. I woke up early to get stuff done today and didn't start, replaced the battery, and now I don't have temperature controls on the AC, and it's freaking cold and I have no heater anymore. Sorry, off topic, I know. Let's get to grinding. Alrighty, so I'm going to grind by sections, probably around 4 to 5 inches, just so we don't warp or heat up the metal too much. Some people will take precautions when welding thin sheet metal to prevent warpage by welding small sections at a time. Then they'll go ahead and hit it heavy with the grinder, and the grinder, as many people don't know, can cause as much heat and warpage as the welder can. I mean, by the size of this panel, I'm sure we got some warpage in here, but let's try to keep it to a minimum. Alrighty folks, now it's just time to spark up. What I see? Aussie, grinder sparks. Perdón. Alright, after 15 hand-numbing minutes, we've collected some good info. So I pretty much used 2 different methods. For the weld on the right over here, I only used this little guy with one of the little mini flapper disc wheels on it. And the reason for that was that one is pretty precise in just knocking down the peaks. As you can see, you can still see the edges of the weld, but the peaks are going down flush with everything else. Rather on this side, I started cutting it down with the angle grinder, and damn, it made quick work of it. As you can see about this area right here, you can no longer see the welds, but it was way harder to see where exactly the contact patch for that flapper disc was. This one for precision, and that one for speed. So I'm thinking I'm gonna use the little grinder in order to knock down most of the peaks on here and then finish it off with the angle grinder. On this area right here, I'm only going to use the little mini grinder just to see what kind of results we can get. Holy crap, guys. We're not even done yet, and this already looks really damn good. Especially this edge. I'm very surprised at how it turned out. And these were two 90-degree panels meeting each other, so I assumed we were gonna have some blow-throughs, but it came out really nice for the first round of grinding and welding. Like, I'm genuinely shook right now. It's usually not this good on the first go. I was already expecting a battle between filling in the pinholes and grinding them down and causing another blow through. Like, even this bottom corner, this was the spot I cared about the least, because I knew it was gonna be so ugly. But look, it's nice and clean. The side that we used the little grinder on, which is this one, did come out, in my opinion, the best. But it also did take the longest for just this little patch right here. But come on, who do you think we are? It's not perfect. We might have gone a little bit too far with the angle grinder on this area, as I can see 2 or 3 pinholes here, as well as this area in the corner over here. I'm thinking this bottom panel was kind of pushed out when it was welded, because there's a big hump right here, or maybe it warped inwards a little bit. But we can't go too far with the grinder here, because I know we'll end up burning through. So we either have to push this metal out a bit or fill in some more weld in this crevice and grind it all down. But also look at this bottom area. I thought it was gonna be much worse. I guess we did stack a lot of weld on there in order to be able to grind it down. I'm just very surprised at this first round of grinding, how good it's going. And I hope I don't just end up eating my words here like I always do. But I think this is gonna turn out pretty good. So once again, I think I want to give these a little bit of a zap. That way we could fill in those slight pinholes. But technically we should have less of a chance for it to blow through when we weld this time, because of those welds that we put on the backside. There should be more material to absorb the heat, so that material on this side doesn't just burn up. But then again, this car is just a giant experiment, so let's see what we get. Oh! Burned all the way through. I mean, that's just a textbook burn through right there. But I know exactly why that happened. And that's due to, remember, the welds that I was talking about on the backside. Well, look at that. On the backside, we kind of missed where we needed to weld. So now it's just deciding whether we want to keep welding from the engine bay side or from the underdash side. Both options both present the same risk of blowing through. I guess we just have to decide which one we feel like dealing with. And of course, I forgot to hit record on the camera, but we got it covered up. As you can see, it looks like a bunch of boogers, as it usually will. But once I tried it again, we blew straight through. So I turned the welder heat down just a tad. And then we were able to pull up some beads on here without it blowing through. But I'm gonna go ahead and continue on the rest of this kind of exposed area where you can just see these little ridges of the welds. And a lot of people would just leave as is and skim coat over it, or put some kitty hair with fiberglass over it, and it would be good. It would be perfect. Like, no one would ever notice, nor would it cause a problem. But I mean, I kind of just want to try it, just to try it. Sheesh. Maybe I shouldn't have tried it. And I know that looks absolutely crazy right now, but let's grind it down and see what results we get. Okay, so I've grinded it down a bit, but I could still see some of the pinholes, so we're gonna go ahead and fill them in and use some of this excess in order to absorb some of the heat. I mean, it may look a little bit bad right now, but honestly, it's not that bad, because I was expecting this exact thing to happen kind of all around. So the fact that it's just in this 3 to 4 inch area, I'm not too upset about that. Alrighty, we've once again grinded it down, but just to give you guys a better idea of what I mean when I say pinholes, put a flashlight behind these welds under the dash, And then you could better see how the light comes through. And those are basically the things that we're filling in here. I think it's best that we weld it from the backside. That way we minimize any additional grinding and damage to the front. We could keep the ugliness to the underside of the dash. I didn't want to do it because it sucks to be under there, but we got to do it. With the flashlight now on the engine bay side, this is what they look like on the under dash side. As you can see, they're pretty easy to spot, but man, is this gonna suck. Alrighty, 10 grueling minutes of under the dash, and we got this thing pretty well backfilled, as well as some other couple small areas that needed attention. But in doing that, we also created ourselves another bigger blow through. So let's see if we can fill it. Ow, why is my helmet not working? Ow, I'm blind. My helmet is like failing to shade itself. That's the problem with these burn throughs, is you kind of just have to keep chasing them until they want to stop playing tag. Oh, check that out. We had to chase it pretty far. The blow through was only about a quarter of the size of this booger run, but you just pretty much have to keep chasing it because it's going to keep burning through, because the surrounding metal is just as thin as the portion that burned through. Again, I'm happy that so far it's only been these 3 small areas, because I've done quarter panels in the same fashion. Actually, I got that welder in order to do the quarter panels on our previous project, and it was my first time owning a welder, so I was still getting used to it. And man, I chased the welds all around this quarter panel for days. So once again, let's flatten them and see what we get. I think we're about done. Sorry. I think we're about done here. Well, ladies and gents, here it is. I couldn't help myself, and I laid a tiny bit of primer on there just to see what it would all look like in one color. And honestly, I'm pretty damn satisfied. Like, for not being original sheet metal, it looks pretty damn good. It looks pretty flush. Obviously, a professional would be able to tell. A concourse car builder would be able to tell. But I really like it. It's not perfect. You could still see some of the areas where it's a little bit rough around the edges, like this one right here. But I mean, I couldn't really get my tools into this area to grind it flush. If I had a finger sander, that would have been perfect, but I don't have one. So we made do with what we had, and I like it. Also, we're not exactly done yet. We still got to do a little bit of filler work in some areas, as well as add an epoxy primer over it, so it can be well protected, and paint, and then it should look damn good. I think the key to doing something like this is just knowing when to stop with the grinder, because once you get it to a point where it looks good, you're gonna be like, oh, let me just get it a little better, and that a little better is what ends up getting you into trouble. For example, this corner right here, I had it damn near perfect. It looked really good, and I told myself, let me just get it a little bit better, and that a little bit better cost me a little warp. In some areas, you can't even tell that it was welded together. Wow, I'm really surprised at how easy this went. I really thought I was going to be chasing burn throughs this whole time, but I do believe that welding it from the backside helped a ton. If we gave it another day or two, we probably could have got that perfect look, but perfection is the enemy of delivery, and I want to deliver some sweet burnouts to you guys. I don't know, that's just my opinion on it. What would you do? Would you keep chasing that perfect look and keep grinding and welding, or would you leave it as is and get closer to driving the thing? Let me know down in the comments. With that being said, thank you guys for hanging out. We'll see you on the next one.